Hello, everybody. I'm just trying to press go live on Instagram as well. Just give me a second. There we go. It always does something as I get it ready to go. So welcome everybody to this week's Monday Motivation. Just a quickie, and for those of you on Facebook and everything, you'll be able to see what's going on in Club Soda this week. Just to let you know, today our blog is about wine and what's coming up in next week's wine, in the end of the month wine club, the 3 wines that we'll be tasting this month. This evening is the live tasting for our Discovery subscription box. Wednesday is Ask Dru as always. Then on Thursday, we've got some iconic modern cocktails, and on Friday, we've got a podcast with Stephanie Chivers, which is an absolute must listen to. And I think also we have got an article about Formula One coming up this week, because alcohol driving is a big issue, but also Heineken Zero is sponsoring Formula One, and there's some really interesting stuff from some research that we've done that we can share with you. So lots on in Club Soda this week, and a huge number of conversations going on in our community as well. So do feel like if you want to join in on our Facebook or the group for people doing our courses on Slack, on the special community for Slack that we have for those people who want that extra bit of help. So what do I want to talk about this week? Well, I had lots of subjects that I wanted to talk about, and then this morning I've seen the fallout from the football. So it would be churlish not to mention that, and also because I've been really upset and angry by some of the outpouring of hatred by some people towards some of the players. And I was contemplating this, because what makes us be horrible to people, particularly on social media, but also why do we think that it's acceptable, and what do we get from it? And of course, what's all this got to do with drinking? Well, first of all, it'd be useful to say that I think, without a shadow of a doubt, everyone who's ever drunk will be able to point to events that they're ashamed of, and things that they've done drunk that they would never consider doing when they were sober, things they got carried along with, behaviour they exhibited that they just don't feel is them in the heat of the moment. And I am certainly in that category. There's lots of things that I've done in the past, things that I've said to people, things that I've done that I am continue to be ashamed about. I have maybe received forgiveness from some people for some of them, but it doesn't stop me sometimes waking up in the night feeling some regret and some shame. And I'm hoping that some of those people who were really quite horrible to the England players yesterday maybe feel some of that too. But of course, that's not the excuse for being horrible to people and taking out your frustration on people. But I also realised that whilst in a drunken state, I might have done some things that I was ashamed of. It's also really clear to me that through my fog of hangover and in my everyday existence as somebody who drank too much, I wasn't the best person I could be towards other people. And the one thing that I've learned about myself since giving up drinking is that when I am angry with myself, I take it out on other people. So if I've forgotten to schedule the blog right properly and forgotten it and made a mistake, I can sometimes be really, really disproportionately angry about that, and then I will snap at somebody close by me and transfer the blame to them, even when it's one of those things, it was probably my fault anyway, and it's certainly not that person's fault. So I've recognised this trait about myself, and I've only recognised that since, not drinking and being able to sit back and pay attention to the things that change my mood, the things that make me angry, make me sad, all of those sorts of things. So that realisation has been really interesting. But then it also points to a really awful thing that I hated about myself when I was drinking, which is that would happen more and more often, that I would do things wrong, that I would do something that I was ashamed of. I would be angry with myself, and then I would take it out on other people. And that shame and that guilt became something that I imposed on other people, and not just myself, but, decided to make the world around me a worse place by treating somebody horribly, being a bit nasty, bitching about them, all of those sort of things. And at the root of it all wasn't anything that that person had done, wasn't anything about that person, wasn't whether they were gay or black or from a different religion or with a disability or any of those things. It was a whole load of guilt and shame about myself that I took out on other people. It was something I knew I didn't like about myself. And it was something that I felt that I had no control over, because ultimately I was drinking and in this vicious cycle of drinking, doing things I was ashamed of, feeling big regret and shame the following day, but having a hangover, so feeling like really terrible, not being able to deal with it, not being able to connect with it, and just rolling into a pit of self-loathing. And through tiredness and regret and shame and guilt, I would then, do something else that I didn't like, which was to be horrible to somebody. It was a really awful cycle to be in, doing horrible things when you're drunk and then taking it out on people when you're hungover. I mean, how do you ever get out of that? Well, you get out of it by changing your drinking habits and changing your relationship with alcohol, and then beginning to take the time to reflect, to see that these are traits that are very human, but are completely amplified by alcohol. And so I imagine today that there are some people that behaved really terribly last night, under the influence of alcohol, that have woken up today feeling a bit of shame and guilt about it. But rather than recognizing that and feeling sorry about it, they might have doubled down and, wrote even more racist tweets, or they may have been snappy with somebody close to them, or been horrible to their kids and shouted, or done something through that fog and that shame, that fog of hangover and shame. So I can really recognize that. And I guess the one thing I'd want to say is it's never too late to say sorry. It's never too late to reflect on that behaviour and do something about it. You can make amends, and it is possible to, you can't undo what you've done, but you can reflect on it and do something different next time. And for me, I think I'm a lot nicer person now. Now, other people may not notice this. There may be, it may be subtle to them, but I can tell you, I really feel it. I feel that I'm more patient with other people, that I'm better at holding my temper when I've done something wrong and want to take it out on other people. I certainly know that when I'm due to do public speaking, right, I get really anxious and snappy. And I actually need to I now warn my partner that I think that anxiety is coming, which I could never recognise before. And I now recognise now, and I apologise now if I'm a bit snappy, and do tell me. So you can begin to manage that behaviour, which is human and natural, but also something that you can begin to control and deal with. But I couldn't do any of that without the base of sobriety that I have, without that the fact that the guilt and shame isn't, as often and as regular, the fact that I can deal with my emotions because I'm not always in a fog of a hangover, and that I can always now have the possibility of reflecting on my behavior, but also being the bigger person and admitting when I've made a mistake, apologizing and doing things differently next time, rather than doubling down and thinking that my only way out of this is to make things worse by doing more of the same really bad behavior. I often, I see this in people all the time, that they can't admit they've made a mistake, and they just carry on plowing on rather than being able to take that step back. And I think what sobriety does, or what cutting down your drinking does, and taking alcohol out of your diet in such a meaningful way, is to give you the space and time to be the person you really are, which is a really nice person that cares about other people, that wants to make joyous connections, that wants to make friends and be friends with people. And that's what we all want at the end of the day. And we are nice people. Underneath it all, underneath some of the really big mistakes we've made, we are all lovely people who just want to be part of friendships and companionship. And all of that is possible. So that's what I want to say today, because I do feel quite sad at how being so nasty to other people must be making those people who are making the nasty comments feel. There must be huge amounts of hate and self-loathing and guilt and shame attached to all of that. And, whilst in the heat of the moment you feel like you're blowing off steam, it must make you feel like a real, just nasty person, and not a nice person in the longer term. And I don't want to feel like that anymore. Okay, thank you all very much. going to end there and now.